Welcome to our podcast, This Life, the Chronicles of Autism Mums. I'm Alison and I'm joined each week by amazing women who happen to have children on the spectrum. We talk about navigating the ups and downs of parenting kids with autism and how that affected us and our lives as women, professionals and mothers. Strap in, grab some tissues. Sometimes you'll cry from empathy and others from laughter. Join us on our journey of This Life. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of This Life, the Chronicles of Autism Mums. I'm Alison and today I am joined by Suzana, Huma and Hasna.
Thank you for having us.
Hi. So excited to be here.
So today we are going to be talking about your biggest fears about going back to school, because it's that back to school season. As expats, you know, we all have these very long holidays. I think for most people it's a minimum of 6 weeks. So it's a lot of winding down in that time. There's also a lot of anticipation for parents like us about the new school year, what that's going to bring for our kids. And I think that very often, talking from my own personal perspective, my son is really not fussed about going back to school at all. It doesn't bother him either way. But my anticipation and anxiety about the new school year has started before the old school year has even finished.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's true,
right?
That's true, yeah.
So I'm building it up in my head. I'm already anxious about what teacher we have, what accommodations, I'm already asking questions. What are they like? Have they had SEND kids in the class before? You know, all of these things. So I'm already creating problems before we've even got to that point.
Sure.
So it doesn't really make for a very happy holiday for me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you guys are all in the same situation. So, Suzana, starting with you, what gives you the biggest amount of anxiety for yourself personally about when you start thinking about the new school year and that kind of settling period?
Yeah.
What's the biggest problem that you have?
I think I just have like the fear and anxiety of like, you never really know what happens. Even if you have things set in place, even if he's in the same school, like things change. And ultimately it depends on the teacher. And sometimes, I'm not saying there's good and bad teachers, but my point is, there is. And there's ones that have experience and there's ones that don't have experience when it comes to how to deal with your child specifically. For some, it comes naturally. For others, they really need to work on it. And there are teachers who are willing to try, even if they don't know how to, and there are teachers who, I don't want to say don't give a,
but they,
but they just kind of like,
it's something to think about.
Difficult
for
sure. Them, maybe they don't understand it, they don't know how they
and
can
they're not
support,
willing, which is amazing. Like
exactly.
For me, I always find that very, very bizarre. I've heard that before in different schools, that there are some teachers that are just not willing to put themselves to a point, and they're not even willing to admit the fact that they don't have that experience. And can they learn?
Yes.
It's like, why are you a teacher?
So I think my anxiety comes a little bit just like from the unknown kind of factor. Yeah. Luckily and unluckily now we're at a phase where, since he's a bit older, we're going into year 6. So that they've already started this year the system of having specialty teachers.
Right.
So he already has like a math teacher, a science teacher, et cetera, et cetera.
Assigned the help.
So, and most likely most of these teachers are new-ish to town. And we have that like turnover of teachers here in, you know, since we're in a country that people come and go real quickly. So far, haven't heard about any teachers leaving, so they might be the same as this year. So that's a good thing. They would already know him and have the like relationship that they already do with him. But yeah, I think that's just like the angle of the unknown is what keeps me anxious.
Yeah. And what about you, Hasna?
I mean, are we just talking educationally, or, I mean, there's a lot of anxiety in starting the new year because of the unknown. I think we all share that, the unknown, how's it going to be, which class, and it's not just school alone for me. It's also, I go into my vacation thinking, oh my God, I have to think all summer, like you said, about what's going to happen. I want to be present. I want to enjoy it. I want to be in the moment. But everything is a question mark. And then besides the school situation, it's how do we get them back to sleep on time? How do we get like the routine? I need 2 weeks before the academic year starts to just get all my stuff together. And that's not even 100%, you know.
How do you get your teachers together? You know, how do you know, at home, you know, you've got your routines laid down, you know your children, so you know how long it takes them to get into a routine. generally it's the parents that are anxious about the school year and not the kids.
Yeah.
They're not really necessarily very
the kids
keen
don't care.
about finishing their vacations, but they're not stressed about what's coming.
Yeah, we're more stressed than them for sure.
But in terms of your anxiety, your stress level, because maybe you didn't finish the year quite the way you wanted to, or maybe you're worried about the curriculum changing and everything getting more intensive in the next years and how it's going to manage it.
I really think for us parents, this anxiety never really goes away.
Right.
It's an all year long process.
Yeah.
So really it's heightened during the summer because it's like at least what we already were used to what we had, but now it's do we have to start from scratch? And often we do start from scratch.
Yeah.
And not always is it going to be a good year or a bad year? Am I going to get the
frustrating
right teacher?
starting from scratch?
Yes, that's how it feels.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you exhausted before you've even started.
Because you feel like you have to do that all over again.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you were going to ask, how do you deal with the anxiety?
Exactly.
And like what I tend to do is have meetings with like the heads of school, the teachers, whatsoever, at the end of the year and at the beginning of the following year. However, having said that, I do that. Like, I mean, I just feel like I need to rehash everything over and over again and kind of like maybe go into detail about like what points I think we need to actively work on.
Right.
And again, it's just like those little things with him being organized, this and that he can't do on his own,
stressful for
and
you.
really needs someone to help him with. And honestly, I can't really help that much with that either because he's at school.
He's at school. You're not
it
there.
needs to be, someone that's actually there.
You know, my hands, sorry.
Yeah,
my
I
hands just started to sweat just thinking about it. and Hasna is holding my hand so that I don't make anxiety notes.
Yeah.
And she's holding me so that I don't fiddle with the pen.
How do you deal with that anxiety?
I'm just
I
sweating.
sweat.
I'm just like, my palms are getting sweaty just thinking, oh, next year is coming.
Thinking about it.
Right. Oh my God, that is actually really sad. It's really sad that we have to go through that.
Yeah, it's just, now that you mentioned, you just never switch off. You're just like,
It's almost like you're going into like crisis management mode.
Yeah,
right?
and just I'm just like, when I think about next year, I'm thinking, oh, how will I manage next year? That I'm not thinking how will my son like
I barely managed this year. How am I going to manage next year?
Every year we just crawl by, just like on our hands and knees. I'm like, okay, just one more year down. So I'm thinking, oh, so like next year is high school. How will we manage next year? So it's already, the wheels are churning, and I'm just, you don't get to enjoy summer vacation.
No,
You're just
no.
Honestly, I don't want to change the topic, but summer vacation alone, that like stresses me out.
Right.
That's like we'll do another episode about that. But like there's like I have a lot of anxiety just for the summer holiday.
I mean, when you're
because like being out of routine.
Yes.
Not just for him, even for myself, to be honest.
It's so funny actually because we I think there's a lot of people, there's two camps with this. There's either a camp that is like, do you know what, it's summer, we're just gonna go feral and just do what you want.
Yeah.
Or
which we do.
and that's for the parents as well, because you need a break.
Yeah.
But then also, if you've got a particular type of family routine, or you've got a particular type of child that doesn't do well with that, it's not worth it to do that, because what's going to come and bite you at the end.
Because you ruin all your routines,
Right.
and then you come back and you have to set them up again. So that takes a lot of work.
It does.
honestly.
It does. And like Hasna said, it's this constant.
It's never. It's always that.
It's
always
always
not like yes, it is heightened because again we have to repeat, start all over. New teacher, and a lot of the anxiety is from the school situation.
Yes,
if you
yes,
think about
of course.
it. No, I mean, I'm okay. I can set my routines at home. We can come every 2 weeks. We will be fine. But really, the unknown. Do we have to go through another year of fighting, of advocating, of explaining from day one?
I mean, what conversations are you having with those teachers at the end of the year and the start of the year? And how do you go in there calmly without taking your sweaty palms and your anxiety? Because sometimes in those meetings, for me, I've worked myself up into a mess before I've even got in there, and it's not with the intention of stressing anyone out. It's literally my whole being is like, can we just do this now? Can we just we just clear this up? Can you just settle everything?
And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think as mothers or as parents, we can see those little things that nobody else sees, and we know that might be something that like needs to be actively like taught.
Yeah.
And other people miss these little things and not quirks, but whatever you want to call them about our kids.
Yeah.
And for them, it might be like a silly thing, like, oh, get him to write his homework in his planner.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who cares? But actually, this affects his whole like school
Yeah.
experience, because, you know, it's just a simple organizational thing that it's the end of the year and we haven't been able, you know, for example, to get him to do.
Yeah.
But it does affect, because then he comes home and doesn't know what his work is. And then I lose my shit. You know what I mean? And I get pissed off and I'm like, I'm not with you in school. If you don't write these things down, how am I supposed to know? And then you're like trying to ask other parents or trying to reach out to the school to get this information. You know, as they're older, they're getting more where the school is trying to like put the responsibility on them,
Of
which
course.
is,
Yeah.
you know,
But they have to
obviously,
teach that.
You know,
Yeah.
I think from our perspective as mothers, I think we're just so traumatized from this process, because it always triggers really negative feelings because of our past experiences, which all of us, I mean, we've had some positives, I'm not taking that away, but the majority have been struggles and fights and challenges, especially us, because 10 years ago, the situation was very different. Situation is still not optimal anywhere in the world, but definitely there's a concept of trauma there, where we're going back, we're triggered to like, oh my God, I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to go through this again. And it sucks that it has to continue to be like that until we have at least services that meet the children's needs, enough compassionate teachers. Because really it's like you're going into this gray area. If the teacher is good, you're going to have a great year. If the team is good, it's going to have but then changes happen all the time. Like you said, high turnover, and you never know.
But as Suzana said as well, that I think it's very important to take note of those small things that don't necessarily mean anything to the teacher. So you on a teacher's case at the end of the year saying,
but why do we have to always
but
be
that's
on
the
a
point,
teacher's case?
and this is the thing, and it's also, why aren't you listening to
and
me? Why aren't you
is the school
hearing?
not passing on the file? That's what drives me crazy. I realize that this happens to me.
There's no
every year.
handover.
Why is the school, the new team is waiting for somebody to tell them what's going on with this child, what he knows, where is the communication happening? And I mean, and this all goes back to the fact that there's not enough inclusive schools, and whenever there's an inclusive system, it's not optimal. And we go back to like the universal idea and problem that all of us as autism and other special needs parents are faced with, which the supply doesn't meet the demand for services. Pretty much nowhere. I mean, even in first, I mean, what do you call it? In developed countries, you will find some areas have more services than others, but there's, I mean, the majority of parents go through our plight. And it is a plight.
And it's such a shame, because ultimately, like, it will go down to like them feeling even more of not belonging because no one understands them. There's nothing.
But it's not no validation for the.
And sometimes it's exhausting that parents alone have to carry all this burden.
Right.
It's so exhausting. Like, okay, and then what? Where if we didn't fight for them, they would fall through the cracks. If we didn't do anything, and you know, and honestly, that's not how a system should be built. That's not how an inclusive system should be built. That's not how the policies should.
And the education is primarily the responsibility of the school. So ultimately, where does the buck stop? You know,
like I'm tired of advocating and fighting and explaining and saying he needs accommodations.
This is why we're so traumatized. Before we, this is why your sweaty palms are happening, even with the thought of it.
Look, I'm leaving marks on the You know, in my previous school, I remember like when the school year was ending, and you know, it was a very desperate situation. I wouldn't stand up for myself or for my child, because I just wanted him to stay in school.
Right.
So a lot of like, I was very what is that word?
So
Docile, and you know,
you were just kind of like, don't look at anybody, don't talk to anyone, just drop him.
Even in the meetings, I would
you
go.
had no expectations.
So you kind of have to let him down in order to not let him down, which is, you know,
I remember one of the teachers who was grateful enough to let him in the class, keep him in the class. So I remember her telling me, oh, you know, I can handle your son when I speak loudly enough, when I shout at him, he listens to me. And I'm like, oh, is this the strategy that you're using? And I remember like he wrote an end of the year note for the teacher, and he was like, I will be a good boy from now on. I will not be a bad boy, and I wanted
That
to
breaks
cry.
my heart. That breaks my heart.
I was thinking,
It's okay. It's a safe space.
I was thinking like he's like what, 7 years old, and I was thinking he's not a bad boy. Is this what he's thinking?
Yeah.
No, he's not a bad
And this
boy.
is what the system is.
And this is
It's
the
not
system
correct.
failing.
Yeah, it's the
It's
system.
failing us.
And just my heart broke from him, and I was like, oh, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't defend him because I didn't want to upset the teachers. I didn't want to upset the administration. So
Because you were just grateful that your son
Yeah.
had a
Isn't it-
spot.
yeah.
But like,
in
how
school.
messed up is that?
How-
That you feel like you can't speak up and
Yeah.
say what needs to
You
be
can't
said.
For fear
because
of not
otherwise
having an education.
You have no
Yeah.
option.
And when you advocate, your son or your child is at risk of being
Like-
exited because they're going to say, oh,
Yeah.
we don't have the
Yeah.
experience. We don't have the knowledge. We are not equipped to take care of your
Exactly.
son. And then you're going to
But
have
they
to
don't-
go back to the other trauma, which is
Exactly.
finding a school.
There you go.
Yes.
Which
So
we don't.
what's better?
Yeah.
And then you're in a situation where, well, this must be better.
Yeah.
And you
Because
have a
there are no
situation where you're
options.
almost apologizing, but not apologizing for
Yeah.
you and your child and you're not even getting a great education. What you're doing is he's
None
being
of us is
traumatized
getting
by
a
the
good
whole
education.
situation.
Yeah, none of our kids is getting an optimal education. I doubt that any of our kids is, but we are trying to make it work
Yeah.
because that's what's available.
Mm-hmm.
The other option is for our child to never explore his potential, to never be
Yeah.
able to do. And what horrible options we
Yeah.
have.
You
It's
know,
like
I
you're
don't-
picking the worst
yeah.
of the evils.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even
Get
look
the
at
best of the two evils.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I don't even look at the teachers' credentials anymore. My main thing is I just want like a kind, compassionate teacher. That's all I want. That's all I
Yeah.
want, because that's the only thing that works. I don't care if the teacher has degrees or not, as long as they're kind and understanding. That's fine by
Yeah.
me. That's how things stand.
It's
at
just
the
so that's
moment.
so messed up.
It's so
I
messed
understand totally why you
Yeah.
would say that, but it's so messed up, and it just goes to show how utterly upside down the system is.
Yeah.
And for you as a parent, not just for Haida, but
Yeah.
the fear and the feeling and
Yeah, of course.
just everything about the situation is just so emotional, and it's an emotive topic for all of us, just
Yeah.
because we clearly, however much we try, I can't imagine my parents having this kind of involvement in my education as I was
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think the times have changed, but I also think if you can go back like 20, 30, 40 years ago to kids like ours in a system then,
Imagine.
I can't even imagine. And I think it was just like, well, they'll just go to a special, like,
or
whatever.
Like to a psychiatrist ward, or to or to an
Yeah.
institution.
Right.
Institutionalization
Like,
was
yes,
still is, but
yes.
was
Or I think
very
we're just
common back
labeled
then.
as the bad kid that
Yes.
you know what
Exactly,
I
or the
mean,
naughty kid.
and depending on the age we're talking about, and
know, the
like the
sad-
schooling system back then, like the punishment of that,
all of that,
you
and
know.
imagine kids that are
Like
already,
I know back in the day, like in our region, like teachers used to hit kids.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how it is everywhere, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even if teachers don't hit kids anymore,
yeah, it's
we
not
are
about that, but-
absolutely being let down
Yeah.
by everything,
system.
because you have to understand that our kids in the present system, and I'm not speaking specifically about one school or another, but our kids are just they're not the preferred child that the school
No.
wants. Our kids are a burden on the school. However,
true.
the school needs to fill up this many spaces, and if they can't do it, then and this is very common, and it happened a lot, and I've seen it over the past 12 years. When the school is new and they need the kids,
Yeah,
they
they'll
tend
open
to
things up.
accept everybody's special needs, because if we open that niche, then there's going to be 50, 40, 30 families that join, and the moment that the school is able to reach that quota, they will start to shut them and get rid of them one
true.
by one. And I've seen it happen over and
over and over
I
again.
am on my third school with my child,
Because of
and
that.
I am leaving because I have nothing left. So and let me say it clear. And he's bright, and he has potential, and he could do so much. And I know your son is the same. And I know, I know a lot of our kids can. And even the ones that have limited capabilities, even the ones that, let's say, are nonverbals, who gives anyone the right not to give them a voice? If they need assistive technology, if they need anything to unlock that, Why is nobody meeting? I love all the talk, but I haven't seen anything in action.
Right.
I haven't seen a single teacher or a single school saying, you know what, we're going to help this kid. He communicates in that way. I want to communicate in that way with him. I'm going to help him find his voice. No, nobody's willing to put that time or effort.
Yeah.
And that goes because we don't have policies enforcing that.
Yeah,
Simple.
as you said that
And
you're
training.
on your third school. I'll be on my third school too.
Oh, man,
Soon
I'm so
we'll be school hunting this summer. We've like canceled summer vacation. We're going to stay here.
Because the school told you not to bring your son back?
Yeah, because the
Oh my
school
God.
and it's I was
Sorry, how many years was your son in the school?
oh gosh, maybe 5 years, I think.
After 5 years.
Yeah.
After 5 years, they're telling you.
And
And it's of course it's all on the child. It's nothing to do with the past 5 years that they've been teaching the child.
And it's not that it's I was sitting and thinking about the I just ran away from the meeting, and I'm like I'm angry at myself that I didn't
because they gave you no forewarning either. They just, and I think in those situations, if you get called into a meeting, but did you know what the meeting was about?
I knew when when I was told that the head of school will be present at the meeting, I knew it's bad news. I called my husband and I said, listen, your son will be expelled today. I'm just letting you know beforehand.
I'm so sorry.
If the head of school is there, it's not good news. And I went to the meeting and I said, listen, I know you're here and I know you don't want my son back. He said, yes.
Oh my God.
And but the thing is that so we're going to have another meeting with them on Sunday. But
you're going to beg them to keep the child. So then you're going to, for the sake of your child having a spot, you're going to.
I was thinking, like they were pretty kind about everything, but the thing is that
But they were kind, but then they kicked him out.
yeah, and I was thinking the
They kicked
reason
him out in a kind way.
Oh yes, there we
I
are.
know, right?
They said some
the
nice
reason was
things.
because they fear him. They fear him
The unknown.
for
They
the
don't
unknown.
understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
they
Because
do
they
not.
don't understand
Yeah,
him.
they
And they don't want to understand.
Yeah, it's
After
just so
5 years, you
difficult.
think that they know
Yeah.
him.
Let's
Yeah.
not speak. The three of us have so much
Anger.
yeah, because had he been little and having the same issues, it would have been different. But now he's a 14-year-old, soon to be 15-year-old kid who's taller than me, like a young adult. So they fear him that he might be a threat to someone in school.
God.
And he's never at home or in school done that. And I told them that that is the stigma that these kids carry.
I
that
think that's just the excuse they're using to
Yeah.
get rid of him, to be honest.
they do not want that responsibility or that headache on themselves. And I was talking to my husband, and he said this is not a good enough excuse to deny a child in education.
No, Huma, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry, we all are, that this has happened. And it just seems that your fears for the coming year have all kind of come true. So what we want to do is we want to explore that more. So, but for now, if we can just kind of round this episode off with your kind of top tips and advice for really handling your own anxiety about the coming school year. So Suzana, what would be your kind of best piece of advice as to how to keep kind of calm and a little
think how
chill?
to handle my own anxiety.
Yeah, your own.
honestly,
Yeah.
is just basically, I think meditation and like that kind of thing is what kind of calms me down.
Right. So that's your thing.
And I think to be like a bit more proactive about like what to do, like as tiring and as exhausting as it is, I think always like staying, like having that communication lines open with the school and with the teachers and having those meetings and talking about the nitty gritty little points is just I mean, it might not be perfect, but at least it's something that you feel like you did your part in it at least.
You feel like you're being proactive. What about you, Hasna?
I think same thing. I think planning ahead will ease a lot of those fears. I usually like to meet with all the teams, all the teachers beginning of the year and disclose everything. I like to, because I'm, like I said, the file most of the time doesn't get passed on. So I prefer to make it clear in a meeting, explain what my son's needs, what he learns, how he learns and whatnot. And I ask all the teachers to look at his IEPs, not the past records. Not everybody does them, but at least I've done my advocacy piece. And another thing is, I can't stress this enough, is self-care for yourself. Like our cup is always empty, so we need to constantly refill it. Like I have arrived at burn down phases sometimes, like from just doing so much of it, where I didn't even have the energy to wake up in the morning. So really, I can't stress enough the importance of just unplugging and complete self-care, especially in the summer. Don't feel guilty leaving your kids with your parents or with your friends or with whoever, and go have that day with your friends and go to the pool and go to the, go dance, go laugh, go do all that stuff, because really nobody is going to refill your battery but yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, we deserve that, and we owe that to ourselves, because there's so much we do during the year, and especially at the beginning of the year. So you know what, the summer, make sure you take time for yourself.
Right, good advice. Good advice, Huma.
Yeah, that's true.
On a positive note.
She got excited for a moment.
My reactions are really, I don't know what my reactions are anymore. I'm laughing about
Extreme.
this whole situation. My palms are sweaty and I'm laughing.
Nervously.
I think, talking to the teachers before the year, at the start of the year or before the year starts, and just let them know what his quirks are, so that they're mentally prepared and it doesn't take them by surprise that, if he needs to run around or if he'll tell a silly joke, so that at least they know that, oh, okay, this was going to happen. So, and that's all I can do, and then he'll surprise them. So that's all I can do for now.
Thank you so much for joining us, and join us next time for the